Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome to the Best Hiring Practices webinar today. My name is Jamie Brown, and I run the Workforce Innovation Board at the WorkNet DuPage Career Center. Today, we have 3 of our board members who are with us to share their wisdom on best hiring practices. We know this is a very competitive hiring market, so we hope that you will be able to walk away with some useful tools that you can implement at your respective companies. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. We have Barry Saltzman. He is the Chief Operating Officer at Acuity. Nisha Patel is the Director of Human Resources at Systematics. And finally, Tiffany Rotundo is the Senior Manager of Corporate Human Resources at the GelCert company. So with that, I am going to pass the baton to Barry, and we're going to go ahead and get started with the presentation.
Great, thank you, Jamie. Good morning, everybody. So approximately 3-4 months ago, we did a similar webinar where I spent a lot more time talking about some of the recruiting best practices. So for today's session, what I'm going to do is just give a very brief, 5 or 10 minute overview of some of the best practices that we're seeing out in the marketplace. Because as everybody knows, there's a real challenge right now in our companies trying to hire the best talent, onboard them, train them, retain them. So hopefully after an hour today, we will give you some ideas and best practices that we're seeing out in the marketplace. Next slide, Nisha. So when I think about employees, I like to think about employees from a life cycle perspective. We have to start by recruiting them. After we recruit them, we want to successfully onboard them so they have a positive experience in their first 90 days and they become a productive employee. Once they're onboarded, then obviously we need to develop them, train them, coach them, mentor them so they could be more successful, integrate them into the team so that we have a nice, happy, healthy culture. And then ultimately succession planning. As our businesses start to grow, we want to make sure we identify the best employees in our organization that could replace employees that might be moving on, moving out, or retiring. Next slide. So where I always like to start is, are you ready to hire? I talk to people all the time and they're like, yeah, I'm trying to hire people. I'm trying to fill this position. And you have to really ask yourself, are you ready to hire? Do you have the appropriate job description that describes what you're looking for? Have you thought through the right compensation plan to attract the talent for your respective business? Do you have an onboarding plan? Do you have a development plan? What is the decision-making process to get somebody on board? And what I've seen time and time again is companies will start interviewing someone and they'll wait weeks before they move them through the hiring process. So we've got to move really quickly and get everything organized on the front end of the process. The other thing to think about too is think about the brand impact to your company as you're recruiting people. If you give somebody a positive experience, they're going to share their stories on social media. If you give somebody a negative experience during the recruiting process, they're going to share negative information on social media. So take the recruiting process real serious and think of the impact that it has to your brand. Next slide. So what do new employees really want? It's not always about money, right? People think, oh, everybody wants more money. Money is obviously important, but what a lot of people want is they want professional development. If they're going to join your company, how are you going to make them better? How are you going to help them grow? How are you going to develop them professionally? And more today, people are looking for some type of work-life balance. There's lots of companies that have 100% remote. There's lots of companies with 100% on site. There's hybrid companies. But at the end of the day, when you talk to these employees, you need to talk to them about how they can maintain some work-life balance. If they go out of balance, they're not going to be happy, healthy, or successful in their workplace. Next slide. So job description. So when I read job descriptions that are out in the marketplace, what I always find interesting is the job description always talks about the functions of the job, the responsibilities of the job. What I'd like to see in a job description is to also talk about the personality traits you'd like to see in a person. So make sure when someone's reading a job description, it helps them understand exactly what the position is and what the requirements are. When I'm looking to hire people at Acuity, I really don't want people applying that are not the right people. I want people to come to Acuity to apply for a job that have read the job description and they're a good match. If you have internal recruiters, or if you're working with an external recruiter to do a search, having a crisp job description will make the entire process so much easier. You obviously can't hire someone unless you know exactly what you're looking for. And when you do hire someone, the worst thing that could happen would be is after 90 days, they say, hey, this isn't the job that I expected. So let's make sure that the job description is spot on and really describes the person that you're looking for. Next slide, please. So hiring it is an investment, not a cost. In today's market, depending on the size of your company, my company is smaller. We can't afford to pay the same amount of money that larger companies are paying. So you've got to be really clear on what you could afford and make sure you understand what the market value is for the talent that you're trying to retain. If we hire someone and we lose them, according to Gallup, that cost could be 50% to 2 times the employee's salary. So if we're going to go through this entire process of trying to hire someone, we want to make sure we hire the right people, pay them what they're worth in the marketplace, because if we lose them, it's a huge cost and impact to the business. Employees are also looking for excellent compensation, and it's different for everybody. Some people want really good insurance. Some people want healthy PTO plans. Some people want tuition reimbursement. So spend some time and understand the market. And I like to think of flexible benefits because not everybody's going to want the same or need the same. So make sure from a compensation perspective, it's not all about the money. It's about benefits. It's about advancement, working from home, training, a fun culture. That'll help you address, it's not only about money. Next slide, please. So we finally have the right candidate. Now we're going to put them through the interview process. You've got to humanize the process, make the process enjoyable for the candidate. If you're interviewing multiple people for the same exact job, create a scorecard. Because at the end of the day, when we evaluate 5 or 6 candidates and we compare them to each other, have a scorecard so that we're comparing the same thing for every person. Come to the interview with great questions. I love to challenge people in an interview. I love to ask them questions to see how they're going to think, to put them on the spot. So I always have 5 or 6 questions that are prepared for each interview to test that candidate to see if they would fit well into my environment. There are some pretty cool tools out in the marketplace using video. You could actually video an interview and you could circulate that interview to other members of your management team so that everybody doesn't have to spend time meeting the person the first time. There are assessment tools. So again, depending on what you're looking for, really think through this interview process. Have your team meet the person. Once you find somebody that you really want, you've got to follow up quickly. I kind of think of the interview process today as what the real estate market's been like in the last year. You have to act quickly. If you sit on a candidate for 48, 72 hours, you could potentially lose them. And make sure you're communicating through this entire process. Next slide. So when it comes to assessments, I always like to think of, wouldn't it be nice if I actually had an instruction manual on a person that I'm trying to hire? So when I'm ready to hire somebody, I meet them during the interview process. Many times I don't really know what I'm going to get. They did great during the interview, but sometimes post-interview, they don't always turn out to be great. So there's some wonderful assessment tools out there that you could run that will give you almost an instruction manual on an employee. Next slide. So with these assessment tools, what if we knew what people were going to do before they actually did it? What if we could see into the future before you hired someone? For example, with the COVID situation, I use an assessment tool that lets me evaluate a person's level of stress. So if I'm hiring somebody, I want to know, do they have the capacity to handle more work? What is their current level of stress? I also want to understand, how can I shorten the learning curve of a new employee? So instead of taking 6 months to get to know somebody, with an assessment tool, I can literally learn everything I need to know about that person in 30 minutes or less. I don't like being fooled by first impressions. In my career, I've hired so many people that I thought were perfect, and 5 or 6 months later turned out to not be perfect. And I was fooled by what I learned during their first impression. And again, the cost of a bad hire is so devastating to a small business. We want to make sure we do it right. So for those of you that are not using assessment tools, do some research. There's some wonderful assessment tools on the marketplace that are very inexpensive that can provide you with great value. Next slide, please. Another strategy that works really well is to target passive candidates. So many companies are posting jobs on Indeed or LinkedIn, and applicants are coming to us. But if you want to find the right person, you need to go out and look for them, right? So most people are not looking for a job, but these people are out there working for other companies. A lot of the top talent typically won't apply on a job board. So depending on the type of job you're looking for, if you're trying to hire a manager, a director, a leader, an executive, they're most likely not going to show up on a job board. So you want to reach out to them. These people are working at other companies right now. So be prepared to target these passive candidates. Explain to them why making a move to your company makes sense. So if somebody calls me and I'm working for a company for 10 years, they've got to sell me a story as to why would I consider leaving. So be prepared to tell a great story. Make sure the interview process is extremely smooth and show them that you're really interested in them and that you want them the same way that you would try to get a new customer. So treat prospective employees the same way you would treat your prospects from a sales perspective. Next slide. Once you finally hire the right person, you need to coach and develop them, right? So coach and develop them to the core values of your company. Teach them to build rapport with clients and prospects. Help them improve their time management. Teach them how to listen more effectively. Again, depending on their job, if it's a sales job, we want to coach them into how to cultivate prospects, how to handle objections. If it's a services job, teach them services skills. What I found in my experience in the last few years, particularly with the younger generation, is they want to learn, they want to grow, they're a sponge for knowledge. So put together some type of coaching, development, mentoring program, and your employees will be extremely happy and stick around for a long time. Next slide. So that concludes my part of the presentation. Tiffany's going to take you through onboarding, and at the end of the session, we'll all have a chance to ask some questions. Tiffany, Tish, all yours.
Right,
I'm sorry, Tiffany, all yours.
So you can go to the next slide, please. I apologize if my voice goes hoarse. It kind of goes in and out, so I apologize for that. But what I want you to do for a moment is think about the last time that you boarded a plane. After you found your seat, you knew the flight attendants would pull out their safety spiel and go through how to fasten your seat belts, where the emergency exits were on the plane, you know, making sure that your luggage was put away safely and securely in the overhead bins, how to use the oxygen masks, and so on and so forth. But all the meanwhile, you are getting your laptop out, making sure you're able to work during your flight, or making sure that you can access the in-flight Wi-Fi. And it's pretty boring, right? Because they don't grab your attention, you know what to expect. But then imagine this. If we take a step back, what if before you left for your flight, you got a phone call from one of the flight attendants that were on your flight saying that they were looking forward to you joining them on the flight tomorrow or today. The flight is confirmed to take off at the scheduled time. And then all of a sudden, once you've got on board, you found this. Next slide. You had a different safety spiel that was given to you outside the normal. I'm not saying you need to get goofy and crazy, but onboarding is a very similar experience as to boarding a plane. You can have a fun and exciting experience, or you can have a pretty dry or a lengthy onboarding experience. So we want to try and prevent that from happening by adding some oomph to it. Next slide, please. So by carefully planning the onboarding steps, you want to give the new employees the information, relationships, and tools to be comfortable and confident enough to do outstanding work. Remember, at this point, you are the only person that they know in the company outside of the few people they interviewed with during the interview process. And chances of them remembering everybody are very slim. You can continue, Nisha. Just to give you a few statistics real quick, 22% of companies have no formal onboarding process. 15% of employees said the lack of an effective onboarding program aided in their decision to quit. That means you're losing them on your first day. That's pretty bad. Organizations with a standard onboarding process experience 50% greater new hire productivity. That's phenomenal. Onboarding programs can increase retention by 25% and improve employee performance by 11%. And then finally, employees who participate in a structured onboarding program are 69% more likely to stay with an organization for at least 3 years. So those are some pretty, good statistics and pretty hard-hitting statistics depending on the size of your company. And as Barry talked about, if you can afford to lose people, then continue doing what you're doing. But if you have the opportunity, you can create an onboarding system and program that is very simple, cost-friendly, and effective, and to make an impact on these new hires. Next slide, please. So the purpose of onboarding is to validate a new hire's hiring decision or their decision to join the team. They've spent a half hour to an hour with the hiring manager, maybe a few other people. So they need to understand more so and get that validation that this was a good decision for them to make to join the company. We want to immerse them into the organization. We want to deliver clear expectations and provide training and present resources to them. Even though we've had that one opportunity to make a good impression when we first contacted the candidate during the interview process, this is our one opportunity to make a good first impression by making sure that we officially introduce the candidates to the culture, mission, and values of the company. Next slide. I'm going to go through the different phases of onboarding with you, but one thing that you might hear from your HR department is always about documentation. When it comes to disciplinary action, we talk about documentation. When it comes to onboarding, I want you to be documenting that as well. Excuse me. We want to make sure that everybody that's involved in the process is held accountable, knows where they need to be, when they need to be there, who they're meeting with, because it will put the new hire's mind at ease and let them know what to expect and when. Next slide. So what can be done prior to the date of hire? There's many different things that can be done during this time. At GelCert, these are a few examples that we go through during our pre-onboarding process. We send out a welcome letter with some products. We're a food manufacturing company, so we send some sample products out with some swag for the new hire. We've started having the hiring manager reach out to the new hire, make a phone call, pick up the phone. An email is always an option, but why not make it more personable and send out or make a phone call? Then we use our HRIS system, the onboarding feature, to send out new hire paperwork to be completed before their first day. If you don't have an HRIS system that has this feature, look into a way that you can make everything electronic or send a packet of information out before the first day so they can spend that time at home completing it rather than wasting that time during their first couple hours on board. Prepare the team for the new hire. Let them know what the person's name is, where they're coming from, what their background is, any fun facts that you can share with them so that they're prepared to introduce themselves when they come in for that first day and meet the team. To assign a mentor or a go-to person to the new hire so that they know who they can go to or ask questions to when they are starting on the team, and that they can just go to this person for information or questions that they might have, whether they be small or larger. Another thing, I know a lot of companies these days are still virtual and some are transitioning back, but it's make sure the employee's workstation is clean. I mean, it's a simple thing. Make sure they have the appropriate office supplies. If they are going to be working from home, have a box of office supplies ready for them to take home with them so that they don't have to go out and purchase their own. In addition to that, get some product together or put a postcard together to welcome them when they do arrive. So at GelCert, what we do is we have a postcard and it says GelCert, and family of brands welcome you to the team. We introduce them, we give that to them along with a handwritten note, a notebook, and a coffee mug. We want to ensure that IT has given the new hire access to all the appropriate systems and tools that are necessary. Nothing is worse than starting a new job and not having a computer to utilize that first day. Then create the accounts within these appropriate systems for the employee. Make sure they get those emails so they can log in on that first day and not have to spend all this time with you setting it up in order for them to access it. And then you want to be preparing training documents. Make all the copies that you need ahead of time, or if it's electronic, make sure you get those to them through email or the appropriate system that's necessary so that you don't have to spend the time you've scheduled for training on getting the documentation ready. Supervisors then should identify what the training schedule is going to be, what the projects and tasks are going to be. Put together a schedule for yourself, just as a hiring manager. What's going to happen the first day? What's going to happen, days 2 through 5? What about the first 2 weeks, the first month? And then finally, make sure that the job description, the goals, and the breakdown of responsibilities are ready for the new hires when they need to be, so that you can go through these with the new hire. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about those things in the next few slides. Next slide. So when you welcome the new hires, on day one, keep it simple. You don't want to overwhelm them with information on their first day because they're stressed, they're excited, they're nervous, all of the above. So you want to make sure that you can get the things prepared and keep it as simple as possible. You want to ensure that the hiring manager is prepared to greet them upon their arrival. Let them know what door they're coming in, what time they're arriving, so that they can be prepared to meet them. Introduce the new hire to the main contacts they'll have in their new position, whether it be just the team or the team and individuals outside that they'll have close contact with. Give them a tour of the facility. Include the mailroom, the lunchroom, the washrooms, different points of entry. It includes showing them different areas in the parking lot where they can park, because they're coming in not knowing anything, and just having a few familiar points of contact are very important for these people. If you have a welcome video, present that to you. At GelCert, we have a new welcome video that we just did with the owners of the organization, as well as the 4th generation of the family that's working for the company. Then, as I said, keeping it simple. The only things that you should have to do is complete the I-9 form, and then a few pieces of extra new hire paperwork, because it should be very minimal at this point because you've already sent it to them ahead of time. Review and give them a copy of the orientation schedule for the week so they know what's going to happen. They know where to go, when, who they're going to be meeting with, and what time it's going to take place, so they can keep themselves on track as well. You want to review their payroll and time and attendance systems if necessary. So we use an HRIS system, and we have an employee self-service. So we have an app that we can download. So we show our employees how to download the app, what they can see, how they can view the handbook from the app, how they can accept or request time off, things like that. Introduce them to the HR team. Those are always going to be familiar faces that they can go to, and we want them to become comfortable and build those relationships with them. And then also introduce them to the senior management team as best as possible. So, then what happens for the balance of the week? Day 2, if you notice, we still have not gotten to the company handbook because there's just so much information that's going on. So day 2, we're going to focus on benefits orientation, meeting with the benefits manager, but then also schedule a time for them to meet directly with the department head. They may have met them the day before, but allow them to spend some time with the department head so they can build a relationship and have a comfortable relationship with them and understand how they fit within the department, how their role does. Day 3, review the company handbook. We utilize a presentation format rather than the handbook itself, which is new for us. And it really has made a difference because it keeps people's attention. There's graphics. It's just the key points of the handbook. We always have a copy of the handbook on ready for them during this presentation. But it's Much easier to go through that than the dry handbook with all the policies and procedures. It adds a little bit of, but has attention getters within it. Immerse the new hire in the organization. If you have a history on the video on the history of the company, go through that or walk them through the history. Make that exciting or make a presentation about the history. Go through the company directory and department guides that are available to the employees so they can start to get to know who's who within the organization. And then the last day of the week, the 5th day of the week, just touch base with the person. It could be in person unless virtually is the only option, but it gives you an opportunity to say, do you have any questions? Can I help you understand any policies and procedures and how they affect you in your role? Do you have any questions about the benefits or when the benefit forms are due? Next slide, please. When it comes to company and role-specific training, you want to look at compliance, clarification, culture, and connection. Compliance, what type of training needs to take place outside of human resources? Maybe there's a training matrix that you can put together so that you're covering all of the different types of training that is necessary. Being in the food industry, we have a lot of compliance training that needs to take place, and sometimes it can be very overwhelming to those involved. So having a training matrix is a very easy way to keep track of what they have gone through and what they need to go through. Clarification, make sure that the manager has educated the new hire on the goals, the job function, breakdown of responsibilities. What are they being held accountable for? Advise them on the formal and informal organizational norms. What's the dress code? Everybody can read a dress code policy, but does that really turn out to be? You know, can you wear hoodie sweatshirts on Casual Friday or can you not? Can you wear gym shoes or is it a dress for your day type of environment? What is the virtual meeting etiquette for the company? Allow them to take the time to to participate in employee engagement opportunities. Let them know about these opportunities. Encourage them to participate, whether they be virtual or in person, so they can get to know people outside of their department. And finally, help the new hire build interpersonal and interdepartmental relationships and continue that positive relationship with HR by having a 45-day or 90-day check-in meetings with them. Next slide. And onboarding is not just for HR. It's very important for the hiring manager to be very engaged with the new hire as they start. Again, by providing clear expectations, reviewing the policies and how they apply to the employee within your department. Being a family-owned, privately held organization, the owners of our company, we have our policies in place, but they want for the managers to implement them in a way that's best for that department. How does it affect production? How does it affect, the shipping? Different things like that. Knowledge is powerful. Give them all the knowledge that they can use to be successful. Set them up to be successful. Give them the tools that they need. You want to create that culture of accountability, which goes back to setting up the goals, giving them the breakdown of responsibilities, setting up those expectations. And then finally, the delivery and overall tone of training is critical to how an employee will retain and apply the material. If the trainer is not prepared, or if the trainer is not a supporter of a particular policy or procedure, it's going to come out in the way that they train the individual. So it's important to be enthusiastic, to support the policies, and to make sure your overall tone is in support of the policies that the company has put into place. Next slide. Finally, onboarding is an essential part of an organization that has to be managed carefully, and because it helps the new hires adapt to the organizational culture, values, and work. Otherwise, as Barry talked about, there's going to be a lot of turnover, and it could be very costly to companies, and all the time and energy spent behind the recruiting plans and recruiting efforts just get wasted. So thank you very much, and I'm going to pass it over to Nisha now.
Thank you, Tiffany. I will be talking about retention today, and retention actually starts from even before day one. How many of you wish, when you are going through the recruiting process, you can predict if a candidate will be a flight risk within the first day, first week, the first 60 days. It's a science. And the truth is that there is no one thing that can help you predict if a candidate will stay. There are strategies that will help you to retain employees. And that's what we're going to be really focusing on during the next 10 to 15 minutes. So according to a statistic that was conducted by Legal Jobs, 31% of employees have quit their jobs within the first 6 months of starting. That just shows how employees and candidates are really confident in this day and time in terms of landing yourself in another comfortable position. More than 50% of employees feel that they would be able to find another job in the next 6 months if they were to leave their current position. As Tiffany said, it all has to start with the awesome onboarding experience, and not only from day one, but the pre-onboarding experience. Almost 70% of employees are more likely to stay with a company for at least 3 years after a great onboarding experience. And again, summarizing what Tiffany had said, it starts with a pre-onboarding checklist, day 1, day 3, day 5, week 1, month 1, so on and so forth. And this can actually last up until your 6-month period of a new employee. Another great strategy to utilize for retention is stay interviews. What is the purpose of a stay interview? It really helps managers understand why employees stay and what might cause them to leave. You can locate things that are frustrating the employees, whether it's the work environment, whether it's certain tasks, whether there's situations amongst coworkers. Stay interviews need to target the personal side of an employee and not just what their role and the responsibility is with your company. You want to ask your employee about aspirations, inspirations, and what they look for in a leader, and opportunities outside of work. There are several different types of stay interviews, and the ones that I found very effective, the first one I'll talk about is your stay interviews with your high-performing employees. These are employees that have been with your organization for a lengthy period of time and who have been one of your top performers, or a high performer, or potentially a high performer. The benefit of having the stay interviews with these employees is, again, to identify any frustrations, any aspirations, what their future goals are, and just to do a check-in with them. These stay interviews are generally conducted once a year, and they should be separate from the annual performance evaluation process. So the goal is for each of them to have their own focus. The other type of stay interview that I highly recommend are with new hires. You could schedule 30, 90, 120 day stay interviews with your new hire, or 30, 60, 90 days, depending upon what works best for your culture. The 30-day interview is really just a quick check-in to see how the employee is onboarding, how the transition is coming along, identifying any challenges or tools that they may need within their jobs, any concerns on feeling welcomed by the team, or is there any clarification that's needed within their current role or position in hand. You could choose to do a 90 or 60-day interview, but this is again a check-in with your employee, a little bit more in depth. What do you like about your position? Has the company met your expectations? What do you think of the company's culture? Any challenges or accomplishments that the employee may have faced or achieved? A great question is, what do they look for when coming into work each day? What are some of the things that they really enjoy about their position? It could be coworkers, it could be, meetings. It could be all sorts of things. These are things you want to identify, not only to strengthen that across your organization, but continue these positive feedbacks that you are receiving from your new hire. Some other good questions are, what would you like to learn with our organization? This is great to notate because for future growth opportunities, it's something for you to discuss with your employee when you feel that they are onboarded, transition, and ready to move on to the next challenge within the organization. And of course, the most important question I feel is, what can I, as a manager or the organization, do to better support you or to best support you? A lot of times, if that is not being communicated back and forth, there might be some, frustration that builds up, and you want to make sure that you're practicing an open door policy there. And then you have 120 or 90-day interviews. These are a little bit more deeper. They're going to talk a little bit more about self-improvement, what opportunities, is the current employee looking for. It really focuses on what their talents are, what their skills are, what they want to learn, what they like to achieve with the organization. The best day interview questions help your most valuable employees understand that you do recognize and appreciate the loyalty. You care about more than just their performance, and you're open to making changes that would bring them more satisfaction. They will help you discover and come across any warning signs that indicate a key player needs for support or direction, or where the frustrations are. It's a way to keep the employees in which you've invested in the most time and resources, and applying any low-cost changes that could reaffirm your employees' commitment and engagement. It will help you come across that knowledge with your employee, such as training or an aspiration to cross-train in other departments within the organization. Replacing your leaving employees can be time-consuming and costly. So stay interviews are a solid strategy to help you retain your business's top performance. Another great work retention strategy is work-life balance. Since the pandemic has hit, this has just become a forefront on many employees' schedules and lifestyle. Workers are expecting some blending of work and personal time and sense of wellness and flexibility. So offering summer hours or flex hours. One program we're going to be offering this summer is the summer hours program, and this is going to be by department. Each department will get to rotate, take some time off every other week, 4 hours, and it doesn't dip into their PTO time. You could have it where they're making up the 4 hours throughout the week, Monday through Thursday, take a half day on Friday, work extra hours Monday through Thursday. Flex hours, flexible scheduling is another great benefit to offer. When you're offering flexible scheduling, you want to make sure that you're applying it consistent as well across your organization. You may have an employee who needs to get her daughter or his daughter over to school, or after school care by a certain time, and maybe allowing those days to be the early hours and be able to leave a little bit earlier. Whatever the case may be, offering the flexible scheduling. Having a fun committee is a great work perk, I call it. Fun committee could be a committee that's set up at work that will plan outings, whether it's happy hour or a baseball game outing. It could be setting up paint parties, canvas paint parties, things of that nature. But these are some just work perks that just offer some time away from work, get some fun time in, collaborate and team build with their departments or with the organization. Educational support. Outside of the tuition reimbursement program, with which many companies do offer, educational support is, we're talking about hours. If they're taking classes which are not offered online or in the evening, perhaps flexing those hours to help support them taking classes. Creative incentives, vacation vouchers, extra time off. Basically, you can utilize vacation vouchers when you identify an employee who has been working extra hours in meeting deadlines or getting a task finished, and just providing them extra hours of vacation or PTO time, recognizing that you do appreciate the time that they're putting in. And then, of course, remote working, which is, I think, very popular these days. If a position is not able to offer full-time remote, perhaps considering having a 1-day remote or a 2-day remote option for that individual to be able to partake in. Employee engagement and celebrations is another huge strategy to offer for retention. These are also what I call work perks, participating in initiatives such as, Green Day or Environmental Friendly Day, having wellness days, offering meditation or breathing exercises during the lunch hour, walking meetings. This is something that we do when the weather is nice, of course, here. Having one-on-one walking meetings to discuss projects or items that can be done informally, but yet getting out of the office, getting some fresh air. It just gives you a break from your office environment, from the desk, from the computer. Rewards and recognitions. A couple of things that we celebrate at Systematics are Employee of the Month, Employee of the Year. We also follow employee recognitions, which is when we will informally document an employee and recognize them for a duty or a task that they completed where they went above and beyond. Or if there was any cost savings program that was followed, or initiatives or processes that they achieved, we would go ahead and recognize them for that as well. There's a whole calendar out there for national and international fill in the blank day. So we do, I remember when I was at GelCert, iced tea was a big thing, since that's one of the items that GelCert manufactures. Is we did National Iced Tea Day, and we set up an iced tea station with snacks for employees to enjoy. At Systematics, we do a lot of promotional items. So we'll partake in, if there's a particular brand of product or consumer's good that falls on that particular international day, we'll do that as a celebration as well. Birthdays, promotions, retirements, newcomers welcoming, celebrating those through luncheons, cookouts, holiday celebrations as well. Oftentimes we'll order lunch for really no reason. And those are the best because the employees really appreciate those surprises. Having book club and recipe club is also a great idea to implement. This builds collaboration. It allows employees to be able to connect with other employees outside of their department as well. So they're not feeling constrained within what their world, if you will. Team building activities, Habitat for Humanity, Northern Illinois Food Bank, Feed My Starving Children are just a few examples within the local community that your organization could partake in. These are great because not only are the employees able to participate, but they can also involve their children and their families to participate along with the organization. A huge retention strategy, I believe, that is just required is culture. You must have culture in the workplace. Why? Well, first of all, culture promotes collaboration. It promotes open communication policy. It allows the employee to trust and commit to the employer because they feel like they're being heard and they're treated in a very respectful manner. But this needs to be consistent. The managers need to not only have respect towards one employee, but towards everyone throughout the organization. And in order to have this culture, it's going to provide a better work atmosphere for your organization. So how can someone respect and lead to retention? Leading by example, preaching what you're practicing and practicing what you're preaching. Maintaining an open door policy, allowing your employees to come in and give you feedback, whether it's negative or positive, and you doing the same as well. And offering appreciation openly. It's one thing when you do offer and recognize your employee one-on-one, but it's also a very proud feeling when you are, as an employee, receiving positive communication and recognition in front of your teammates and peers. These actions, how can I build this respect? It's by treating people with politeness, courtesy, and kindness, staying professional with the tone of your voice as well as thoughts. Avoid criticizing, judging, demeaning, or condescending anybody. And that's not only in private, but also in a public setting. Use people's ideas and implement them in building policies. Utilize your people's ideas. Ensure people know how and understand that their ideas are valued and they're being heard. Allow them to express their viewpoints openly and freely, and communicate that there are no wrong or correct answers and that everybody has a say in matters as long as it is completed respectfully. Speaking of communication, positive feedback. Positive feedback just goes a very long way. These are just minor things that really makes an employee feel like they're being, recognized, that they matter, that they're valued, and what they're working on and how they're working, you see it as a manager. Some examples of giving positive feedback over time. When an employee puts in overtime, a great way to recognize that is, thank you for putting in the extra effort during this busy time at work. I understand that staying late isn't easy, but the team truly appreciates it. You are a valuable member of our team, and your positive attitude has helped us all continue to feel motivated. That's just uplifting, and it allows the employee to feel like their extra hours are not going down to wayside, and somebody is recognizing that they are staying extra hours, which they're being pulled away from their family or their personal life. Boost in morale. Not so long ago, Systematics had, some negative, comments that were being made, and it just came down to boosting in the morale and just giving positive feedback. Hey, Nathan, you've been doing a great job lately. You're so talented and staying flexible on any projects, which help everyone on the team. You've grown so much in your role since starting here. Thank you for your hard work, and let me know if there's anything I can do to make working here better. Again, you're showing the employee that you're caring. You're showing the employee that you are recognizing the time and the flexibility of that employee and what they're willing to put in. When you have conflicts, how an employee handles conflicts is also a great way to provide positive feedback. And when an employee does additional tasks outside of their roles as well, it's great to recognize that, because you want to make sure that you're not just you don't recognize what they do on a day-to-day basis, but those extra tasks that they do outside of what their job description may require for them to do. So these are just an example. Statistics show that for every 5 pieces of positive feedback, it's safe to give 1 piece of constructive feedback or any negative feedback or room for improvement. You definitely want to keep that positivity and the morale, and you want to motivate. That's what these positive feedbacks, the purpose of that is to motivate them for their extra effort and for additional time, and that they're being valued for putting in that time. As Barry mentioned during his part of the presentation, training and growth opportunities is the number 3 benefit or incentive that employees or candidates are looking for after health insurance and disability insurance. So workers value learning opportunities, and what that means is training courses, whether it's as simple as Microsoft Office, or it could be something a little bit more technical. It could be something with communication skills, it could be management skills. But training is definitely something that that needs to be offered or should be considered. Employees are looking for growth opportunities. They're looking for an opportunity where they can learn new skills and add on to their skill set. 57% of US workers want to update their skills, and 48% would consider switching jobs just to do it. Those are pretty high numbers when you take a look at what we're going through with the very low rate of retention throughout the nation. 71% say job training and development increase their job satisfaction, and 61% say upskilling opportunities are an important reason to stay at their jobs. So again, offering those opportunities will definitely attract a candidate to stay on, and it just tells them that there's definitely additional growth opportunities within the organization. US workers want employers to pay for their training. So whether it's classes for Excel or PowerPoint, or it's something that is more so management, or even something more technical like learning a new machinery. US workers are looking for employees to pay for their training. And 65% say they want training paid for by their employer and offered during work hours. So one of the great things that we do here at Systematics is offer English classes. Our majority of our demographics is only Spanish speaking, and we've partnered up with COD to offer on-site Spanish or English classes throughout the week. And we're in our second or third quarter into offering these classes, and it's great. It's during the workday. They're getting paid for it, so they're not having to pay out of their pocket. Benefits and incentives, of course, I think goes without saying. Offering competitive benefits, which means offering more cost coverage by the company, so there's a decreased cost out of the employee's pocket. 401k or an IRA with a company match. Generally speaking, most companies offer about a 50% match, up to 6%. Tuition reimbursement, not only for tuition, but for books as well. Offering mental health days. This is pretty new and up and coming in the recent years, I would say. But offering mental health days where there are days allocated that an employee can take out just for a mental health day. Paid time off, including your leave of absences, vacation time, sick time, personal time, floating holidays. These are all that could be, offered in different categories or under one umbrella of paid time off. Something that I definitely think is pretty popular these days is employer paid food delivery subscriptions. So especially those employees where you recognize employees are staying late, coming in earlier, offering an allowance for something like Uber Eats or Grubhub or DoorDash. That could be a great incentive to give as well. Transportation subsidies and or rideshare coordination if there's an employee that's commuting in and out of the city, lives in the suburbs, or vice versa. Perhaps covering a partial or their entire cost for a Metro ride or for the CTA. Rideshare coordination, again, same concept, except with like a Lyft or Uber, giving an allowance for that benefit as well. Student loan repayment assistant, a little different, maybe allocating X amount of dollars, especially if it's somebody that's a new grad that you're hiring right out of college. That could be part of their offer is helping pay their loan by allocating X amount of dollars to that. On-site offerings and employee discount programs for any products or services that they may be offering or that their organization offers, such as if you're a food company, food or beverage, maybe offering discounts on whatever products it is that you are manufacturing. On-site offerings such as childcare. I worked at a organization that had a dentist office, a dry cleaning service, childcare center, all on site, and it makes it very convenient for working families in this day and age. Meditation rooms and a mentor program. So when you're thinking about retaining your employees and what can you do as an employer to retain your employees, you want to make sure that you take into consideration that top talent stay when they are paid well, that they're mentored, they have a go-to person, that they're being challenged and they're being involved in the conversations, that they're being heard, that there's promotion opportunities, growth opportunities, they're appreciated, they're on a mission, there's goals that they have that they need to work towards. And that they're being empowered and that they're trusted. So these are some things when you're taking a look at your retention programs, take these into consideration. This is kind of the general criteria that what your employees and your top talent are really looking for. With that being said, I will open up the Q&A. And back to Jamie.
Thank you, Nisha. Thank you, Nisha, Barry, and Tiffany for all of that really good information. So everybody knows that everybody on the call will receive a recording of today's webinar, because I know there was a lot of information and you may want to go back and reference it. At this point, we're going to allow some time for question and answers. What we're going to do is if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will go ahead and unmute you and we will do it that way. It looks like Diane already has a question. So let's, Barry, do you want to, we'll have you answer. And then if Tiffany and Nisha, if you have any input, go ahead and provide that as well. Okay, Diane, you should be able. She's muted. Diane, if you can unmute yourself, that would be great.
Okay.
There
My
we
name
go.
is, yeah. My name is Diane Gayton and I work at Educare West DuPage. I know we've met a lot of people from GelCert, and I appreciate today all the information that was provided. We just started with Paylocity, and it's a self-service portal, which I'm not used to. And so now everything is on me to do. But we're going to start with their recruiting because we're having such a problem recruiting. And that was the biggest, or my biggest problem now. But I appreciate all the onboarding tips because we have part of that in, but some things I never even thought of, which today was provided. So I just wanted to say I appreciate everything today.
Oh,
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
thank you so much, Diane. It's nice to hear. That's why
Yeah.
we're doing this. So if you walk away with one thing, that's good enough for us. So
Right.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to see if anybody else has questions. I don't see any questions in the chat yet. Oh, I do. Eileen has a question. And Eileen, I've asked you to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely. That worked perfectly. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. This was a very comprehensive, great, from different angles from how to present, hire people and keep them, retain them, and keep them motivated. I'm asking for an overview suggestion when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and equity. A little bit of commentary from the group on how that training is going through companies at this point from an HR level. It seems that, because I have a son that is impacted, and the manager just has no clue how to handle him. And a lot of what was mentioned for positive things here are absolutely the opposite of what's going on. So can you share a little bit of tips and tricks on that, on how to promote that in a company?
Oh, I'll jump in.
Tiffany? Yep,
Yeah,
that's great. Go ahead.
a lot of it has to do with the training of the supervisors and managers that are overseeing the individuals. And actually, Parents, is it Parents Alliance? Is an organization that can work with the companies to help train individuals. Correct, right, Jamie?
Yes.
Yes, and so I say it starts with the training of the individuals that are going to be supervising the employees that fall into this category, and additional training outside of that, ongoing training, as well as talking to the individual to find out what is the best way that they're learning, what needs do they have, how can we meet those needs, and go through that whole like intake prior to the start of the job, or even at this point, since they've started and they're not understanding it, have them take that time, to investigate and make sure they're on the same page, but also utilize those outside resources for help.
Great, thank you. So is that the only organization that you know that is training people?
Well, that's one I know that's definitely involved with working at DuPage. And there's other companies that organizations can work with. And it depends on the organization and who they're working with. A lot of times it could be the attorneys that they have. It could be, just, I'm not too sure of other ones off the top of my head. I could do some research on it, but I don't have it off the top of my head. I don't know if Barry or Nisha have an option.
Yeah, I'll add a quick comment, Tiffany. So at our company, we use an outsourced HR services company, and included with our partnership is we have access to a library of videos. So we put our managers and supervisors through different video training, one of them diversity and a variety of different topics. So it's just a library of videos that comes with our outsourced HR services partner.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Anybody you'd care to recommend?
Is the question as an HR outsourced partner?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Eileen, obviously I don't know about your business or your needs. I mean, we use a company called Launchways. They're based in Chicago. And we're a small company. We can't afford a full-time HR person, so we use a services partner for that. So again, not knowing your specific needs, they're a very good company for us.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking to recommend. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the question, Eileen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, of course. I will scroll really quick. I don't see any other hands raised, so I will do last call for questions, and then we have a couple more slides, and then we will be finished. I don't see anything else. So Nisha, do you want to go ahead and go to the next slide?
There was a question that was put in the question and answer boxes. I don't know if you
Oh, I didn't see. What, do you want to read it?
Sure. Who do you recommend conduct the state interviews? HR business partner, generalist, learning and development, or the recruiter? Anybody want to take that, or I can?
Nisha, want to take this one?
Yeah, I think Tiffany, you and I will probably agree on this, but I would say it would come from your HR business partner or generalist or manager, at the 30, 60, 90, or 120 day, however you choose. it's consistent. It really allows you to dig more deeper based upon what your questions are and the feedback that you're receiving. It's, you know, a lot of times managers, that relationship may not have been established where the employee feels fully comfortable to be, you know, open with their manager if they are a new hire, and if there's somebody that's been on, you know, on board for quite some time. It allows the employee to be able to be comfortable in sharing information without any type of you know, repercussions or things like that. So my recommendation is definitely your HR generalist or manager that you have on board there.
Thanks, Nisha. Okay, Tiffany, are you seeing anything else? I don't see anything else. Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, thanks, Nisha. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our business services department, since you are all employers in DuPage County. And I wanted to let you know, if you don't already know, at WorkNet DuPage, we have funding earmarked specifically to assist DuPage County businesses. Some of our most popular programs are no-cost interns. We have a free job posting service. We have a job board, which is very active and very extensive right now. We have 50% wage reimbursements for on-the-job training. And then there's also funding available up to $25,000 to upskill current employees. So what I would do is I would encourage you, if you want to learn more about this, to go to our website, which is worknetdupage.org/employers. Nisha, next slide. Oh, thank you. And lastly, before we part ways today, I wanted to let you know that we do have another upcoming webinar this coming Tuesday, which is a second chance hiring information session. Second chance hiring is an underutilized and untapped pool of candidates for a lot of employers, and especially in this highly competitive hiring market that we're in right now. This is a really viable option for employees. So I would encourage everybody to please attend. It's Tuesday, April 12th from 8 to 9, and you can register for that. And to register, you can visit worknetdupage.org/employers. So we hope that if you have an interest in that, if you are looking to increase your talent pipeline at your company in some new ways, please feel free to jump on that webinar, because there will be some really good information. And with that, I am done. I wanted to again thank our panelists, Nisha, Tiffany, and Barry, for taking the time to join us today and impart their wisdom on us. I learned some things, so I'm hoping that you all did as well. Did anyone have anything else to say before we go ahead and sign off?
Oh, thank you.
No? Okay. All right, everybody, have a great weekend, and look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you.